Hey, Brian, Vince Ferrara here, Knoxville. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Doing great. I know a lot of MMA fans, they know your story. They know your background and everything that you have been through. If you could, for some of our listeners that maybe haven't had a chance, or more casual MMA fans, or maybe are newer to the sport, take people through your journey from being in the military to getting to be a UFC fighter and some of those notable things that have happened to you along the way.
That's a loaded question.
Yes.
It's been a long journey. I started my MMA career as a hobby, and it really was just a hobby for many years. Even while I was in the UFC, I still maintained a full-time job. Being a father of two, I didn't want to risk injury and complete loss of income. When I had kids to provide for. So it's been long. It's been great. It's been a lot of great experiences, and the thing I've enjoyed most about it is that through my losses and my wins, I've become a better man. I've become more humble, more life experienced. You learn more things about yourself that are more important in life than they are in the octagon through the sport of mixed martial arts, and for that I'm grateful. And those will be the things that I take with me the most when my career is over, more so than any titles or rankings.
We're joined by Brian. Stann is on the card at UFC 152 with a terrific fight with Michael Bisping, and we'll talk about Bisping here coming up in just a little bit. A graduate of the Naval Academy back in 2003. And what specifically do you take in terms of training, in the training you did in the military, that you used to get you ready for fights?
I think it's the diligence and the discipline. Obviously, when we train in the military, especially in the Marine Corps, everything is deliberate. If we know we're going to deploy 6 months from now, then we're going to put together a 6-month training plan to make sure we're trained in every area that we need to be trained for that specific mission. And I approach my fighting career the same way. Whether I'm training for a fight or a fight just occurred and, I've taken a couple of days off and I'm going back in the gym, I'm not just going to show up to the gym and whatever the guys are working on, I'm going to work on. There's going to be a plan in place. I know I need to work in these areas. I know I need to work on these techniques, and then that's where I need to focus to become a better overall fighter. And I think that's helped me to get to where I'm at today, despite not training for nearly as long as most of my peers.
Visiting with All-American Brian, Stann is on the card at UFC 152 taking on Michael the Count Bisping. You've played some other sports in the past as well. How close were you in maybe making one of those other sports a different direction in your athletic career?
When you play football at the Naval Academy, the NFL is pretty much out of the question.
Right.
I wasn't close at all, and I loved football. And, we had a tough couple of years during my time at the Naval Academy. We're finally able to turn it around, my final year and get the ball rolling the right direction when we got a new head coach. But my thirst for competition was still very strong. My college football career didn't turn out to be what I anticipated. So I think that's why I fell in love with mixed martial arts so hard, and why, obviously I'm still competing today. What's
been your most significant win in your MMA career to this point?
I guess I'd have to say the Chris Lieben fight, because that's where I went from being basically an undercard fighter, and then all of a sudden I was in a co-main event. A lot of people criticized me for being in that co-main event, thought Chris Lieben was going to mop the floor with me. I knew differently, obviously, went out there and made a statement. But also right up with that is really my last fight. My last fight was a big win for me, not only just I came off a big loss to Chael Sonnen where I didn't perform very well, and a lot of people wrote me off after that fight, despite, Chael's ability to make a lot of people look bad. But on top of it, my family went through a whole lot of hardship before the Alessio Sakara fight, and despite that, I was still able to put together a great training camp, go out there and perform to the best of my abilities and get a great win, and it's put me back into a contender's fight where I am now. Things
a lot better with your family?
They are. We're moving forward, and anytime you have a death in the family, it's just not easy, and that's part of life, and fighters are human, and those things happen in our families too.
I'm sorry to hear that. All-American Brian Stann joining us here, getting ready for UFC 152. Michael Bisping, I'm sure these quotes have been sent to you, but I want to put them out there for our listeners and have you react to it. This is Michael Bisping, his opponent. I was kicking arse in the UFC while Brian Stann was peeling potatoes, shining boots, and getting called maggot by red-faced sergeants in the armed forces. His military career is very impressive, but this isn't the military. He's not allowed to bring guns and grenades to the fight with him. This isn't a battlefield. This is the UFC octagon, my battlefield. What's your response to that?
I really don't care. But he's actually, in some parts, true. He was actually in the UFC, and I was still in the military. So, good for him. I take it as a compliment that I was able to catch up so quickly with much more limited training and obviously a lot shorter timeline to get to the UFC than he had. And here I am still fighting him despite being in the military while he was already in the UFC. So I've never peeled potatoes. We didn't shine any boots, and I was an officer, so I didn't get yelled at by sergeants. So other than that, he was decently accurate.
Well, and you guys, you have a point because you guys are in the same position. This is a huge contenders opportunity for you guys in the 185 division. So you guys are in the exact same spot regardless of how you got there.
Yeah, and I've held a full-time job the entire time I've been a fighter as well. So, it doesn't, for the young people listening to the show, I mean, you can do this. Even if you have a full-time job, you can find the 4 or 5 hours a day, and you can do it with a really detailed training plan. Guys can continue to get better. Once they get to this level, I mean, they're going to be putting in full days. There's no doubt about it. But for the guys that are trying to make their way, it can be done.
Brian, tell everyone real quick about Hire Heroes. It's great. It's something that is necessary in this country, but plug Hire Heroes.
Yeah, sure. Hire Heroes USA is a charity that I'm currently the CEO of, and we help find career opportunities for military veterans and their spouses through personal employment training and corporate engagement. And so my team every day is on a base, on the phone, or in person with veterans, working with them on how to communicate their skill sets through written resumes, interview skills, and value propositions, and then matching them and helping them find jobs and formulate their career search process so that they can get employment. Over 20% of the Iraq and Afghanistan veterans that have returned to this country and gotten out of the military are unemployed. And so that's more than twice the national unemployment rate. It's very difficult for them to reintegrate into society and then come out and communicate their skill set to employers that really don't have any familiarity with the military. And so that's where we come in. And despite our small size, having about 20 people on our staff, we're helping 6 veterans a week get full-time jobs, and we're helping thousands get resumes, interview skills, and being taught seminars on how to go from being unemployed to employed.
Really, it's great. Again, that's hireheroesusa.org. Last couple of quick things with you, Brian. We appreciate your time. We're talking to All-American Brian Stann, getting ready for his big fight with Michael Bisping in a contenders fight in the 185-pound division coming up on Saturday. What are the weaknesses of Michael Bisping that might give you an opportunity you might try to take advantage of?
Technically, there's not many. He's a very well-rounded fighter. However, I think the weaknesses he has, I think we're two different kinds of athletes. He's a very good endurance athlete. He's got good quickness. I'm a much more explosive athlete, and that's where I've got to take advantage of that. So when he's trying to take me down, I've got to use my explosiveness to avoid that, or use my explosiveness to put him on his back. And then obviously, the obvious. I win most of my fights by knockout. And if I catch you solid on the chin, you could possibly go down. And, Michael's got some pop, too, so who knows? If we can engage in a stand-up battle and give these fans the action-packed fight that they deserve and that they want, that would be a win for both of us. So, but I'm looking to exploit the striking game, and I feel I'm the better striker, the more explosive striker. And I also feel like I'm a better wrestler, which he would argue against completely, but, I'm willing to show that come next Saturday night.
In the main event, it's Jones versus Belfort. What did you make of John Jones not sliding in on short notice into that main event last time, and what do you think about his battle with Belfort?
Well, first off, I think obviously Vitor's got an uphill battle. Vitor's an amazing fighter. He's a legend. He's a Hall of Famer. No doubt about it. I've trained with Johnny on many occasions, and Johnny's just a different beast. When a guy can reach out across the cage and hit you, and you can't even get near him, that's a huge obstacle to overcome. And, Johnny gets better and better every single day that he trains. He's had the fastest climb out of any mixed martial artist I know, just due to being such a great athlete, and he's been devoted. So it's going to be tough. And as far as him turning down the Chael Sonnen fight, I don't know. I didn't talk to him about it. I don't know exactly what his personal reasons are, and I don't know exactly what was communicated to him from the UFC. I don't know how that conversation went. Did they say, hey, look, John, if you turn this fight down, we're going to have some major issues with you, and you're going to be blamed for the cancellation of the whole card. I mean, was that message conveyed to him or not? I don't know. I don't know. If the UFC is going to get this upset about guys turning down fights, just put in our contract where we can't. That they're allowed to change up fights. I don't know. Me personally, what I've taken, I probably would have, but I don't have nearly as much to gain or to lose, as far as endorsements, purse, and everything else as John Jones. So I can't speak for him. And, my coach, one of my coaches, Greg Jackson, took a lot of heat for that decision. Look, coaches aren't supposed to have a relationship with the UFC. That's not their job. They have a relationship with the fighters. Fighters have managers who have relationships with the UFC and guide them as far as the decisions that are best for their career. So I think Greg Jackson took a lot of heat where really that's not his job. It's more John's manager to give him, advice on that. And I don't know what kind of message was conveyed to John or his manager from the UFC or what they said back to the UFC to really have an overall opinion on what he should have done.
An intelligent answer as expected, and it'll be interesting to see how this maybe changes things and if this situation comes up in the future. Brian Stann, 12-4, fighting big fight against Michael the Count Bisping coming up at UFC 152 Saturday, September 22nd on pay-per-view. Brian, great to catch up with you. Really appreciate it. Good luck on Saturday.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.